I've returned to the Isle of Man, of course, because of the Megaslam Wrestling show happening on Wednesday evening, or happening tonight.
How many times have you done the Mega Slam?
Yeah, I've been with Megaslam since 2015 and been on the shows that come over every year. And it's one of the highlights of Megaslam's tour coming to the Isle of Man because of the fans and the enthusiasm everybody has when they come over.
Awesome. How do you know anything about your opponent this year?
The only thing I've found out about my opponent is his name is Liam Carr. And I've heard from a few of my other friends in Megaslam Wrestling he's a bit of a bad guy. So I'm going to have my hands full in the ring, I think.
Can you talk us through how the event works? How does Mega Slam work? Is it all scripted, or what are the ins and outs? What details can you reveal that is without sort of, I'm assuming it's a bit like Magician's Code, maybe?
It's an amazing show. When you go there and you buy a ticket and you're sitting in the arena, you are with the event. You follow the wrestlers. You see the good guys and the bad guys, and you feel something clearly. So you cheer the ones that you want to win, and you boo the ones that you don't like. It's like seeing an action film, but the stars are there in front of you, and you can touch them, and they interact with you right there in place.
Are you a good guy or a bad guy?
Well, funnily enough, when I'm in Sweden, they don't particularly appreciate my character there. So the one time a year when I get to come home, I get to put on my Manx clothes, and everybody loves it here. So I get to be a good guy, the hometown hero here in Douglas.
Let's talk about your character. What's your character's backstory?
Yeah, so the character was cooked up in Stockholm, Sweden, where I live now. The idea was they wanted to have a British star wrestler, and when they heard about my background of coming from the Isle of Man, they thought this is very unique. We can't just pass this opportunity up. We have to have a royalist character from the Isle of Man. So their idea was to create somebody who claimed that they were a part of the royal family of the Isle of Man. So you might remember a few years ago there was a pretender who came forward called King David I. And it was sort of from that idea we got the inspiration. So we came up with the idea, we can make a royal character which everybody would hate, pushes pro-Thatcher idealisms, and gets under the skin of all the fans at Stockholm Wrestling.
Have you ever had a fan go too overboard, like you've really got under their skin to the point where they've nearly overstepped the mark and got too involved in the whole thing?
Yeah, it has happened a few times. They usually start by getting very verbal when you're on the way to the ring, but some people have grabs before, and then there was one time I pushed somebody back very slightly, but they happened to stumble and went and fell over afterwards. But I couldn't. I had to keep up the bad guy persona on the way to the ring. I couldn't say, "Oh, are you okay? Is it fine?" I had to keep walking on. But it was funny to watch on the video afterwards. But nobody was hurt, probably.
Is it difficult to stay in character in those situations?
No, you're so like psyched up before going out there. Everything is it's like method acting. You put on the clothes, you put on the outfit, you get into the mental space that you need to go out into the ring to do what we do, because it's very physical. You can't do anything halfway. So it's the same. As soon as you're out there, as soon as you go out and then you hear the reaction from the crowd, it's a genuine reaction back to them. And if they're booing you, there's hate both ways.
And let's talk about your outfit. So did you come up with it yourself? You've got very fetching leggings on, which I'm sure everyone on the Isle of Man will approve of.
In wrestling, we call them tights, not leggings.
Sorry, I do apologise. Please don't hit me.
Not at all, no. But I had them designed. I thought, first of all, there's a company in Mexico who does them, which I was in contact with. And I thought, I have to have something which it can't be mistaken. I'm very patriotic as well. I want to represent the Isle of Man. Strangely enough, not so many people outside of the UK and further in Europe know so much about the Isle of Man, and those who do are usually involved with motorcycle races and such. So I thought, well, I can fly the flag literally by having the flag on my tights to show that's the place I'm from and it's where I represent.
And you also fly the flag for the Isle of Man with your finisher move, is that correct? That's inspired by the 3 legs of man?
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a modified single leg Boston Crab for those
I know exactly what
wrestling
you're talking about.
aficionados out there. No, so it's a leg lock. So I usually try and weaken the opponent's leg under a match. So when I put the hold on, that they've got no choice to either tap out or try and reach for the ropes. And I try and apply that hold every match. And I've won a few matches in Sweden with that very hold.
And let's just go back to you. How long have you been wrestling for, and what inspired you, or who inspired you to start wrestling in the first place?
Yeah, so I had my first training probably back in 2003, so it's been a while. And then first match 2005. I had a break there for a while. I did some other sports, boxing, kickboxing, and then got back into it. I made a real go of it 2013, so I've been wrestling, trying to have matches every month since 2013. And it's something I grew up watching, something which I sought out because it wasn't on regular TV growing up here so much, but you could look and find tapes and things. The wrestlers who inspired me were Dynamite Kids, Macho Man Randy Savage, the smaller, more athletic wrestlers rather than the bigger known stars, maybe like a Hulk Hogan or a Steve Austin that other people would. But it's the athleticism, the skill that's required was what attracted me to wrestling.
Absolutely. And is wrestling, because you mentioned sort of you got involved in it in early 2000s when I remember it being massive and really popular. Is it still as popular as it is? Is it still as popular today as it was back then?
It's kind of changed. The American style wrestling is waning a little bit, I think. The American fans are looking to the UK scene because here it's really growing enormously. There's a lot of people making a full-time living wrestling in the UK. And the biggest company in the world, WWE, are noticing that and opened their own training centre here and have their own brand, which is called NXT UK. So in the UK, and to knock onto that, Europe as well, there's a lot more people wrestling and a lot more promotions open, running shows regularly. So the scene is a lot healthier now than it was even 5-6 years ago.
And have you invented any of your own signature moves besides the Three Legs of Man move?
Well, I have a bit, and I usually try and play off what's going on in the news or the current political climate. My character tries to be a bit political as well. I'm sure none of you have missed that there was something called Brexit, which they were discussing, which may or may not be happening. We don't know. But the people in Europe are very interested in British characters, so I thought, well, I've got to have a move called Brexit somewhere. So I had a move where I put people on my shoulders in a fireman's carry, throw them up, and drop them on the back of the neck over my knee. It sounds very dramatic, and I call the move the breakneck Brexit.
Very good, very topical. And finally, have you ever been accidentally injured during a fight?
Just in training, you can see here, training for my match now, trying some new moves. I damaged my finger, and my other my other hand. I've also had a finger break under a match where I had to pull it back into joint. I'm sure people in the audience were thinking, this wrestling stuff, this isn't real, this is all fake. How did he do that with his finger? But that was another case of holding character and just getting it done. But yeah, it's not something that anybody can do or should do. There's lots of risks involved, and me and a lot of my wrestling compatriots have heard lots of stories of injuries and things. But for now, I'm healthy, and it's going to continue that way.
Sorry, I know I said final question. For the young kids that I'm sure you'll inspire, I'm sure a lot of kids will watch you and be like, oh, I want to be a wrestler. What would your words of wisdom to them be if they wanted to go into wrestling?
Yeah, the best thing to have is to train another sport first, is to get a good ground conditioning, a good strength, and work on the charisma part of it as well. Work on all of these parts before looking for a wrestling school. And nowadays there are so many good reputable wrestling schools available. Maybe not here in the Isle of Man, but across in England, there's definitely opportunities. But get your own conditioning first. Make sure you can do. If you can't do 20 press-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 squats in a row, then work on those bits first, and then look to broaden your horizons after that.